Well, hello, everybody. It's a good time for a CIRF report. And this week, we're going to feel a lot of disorder, a lot of lack, limitation, maybe some agitation, pent-up energy. And so, despite a new moon in Cancer, we are going to have to probably try to get out of our comfort zone. And that's what this CIRF report is about as we get into position. You might notice I look a little tired. I've been sneezing. Of all things, sneezing was keeping me awake last night periodically. That never happens. But here we go. We're going into what could be the dominant energy of pessimism. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. But I think this is what the triangulation is saying. This is going to be the influence. And we've got, as you can see, well, let me get my pointer out. This is just our overview slide. For those of you who are new, we're going to do this same thing with the solution or the behavior, the recommended behaviors. We're going to do a whole separate slide on triangulating for the best behaviors for this energy. But for now, I want you to be prepared for what to look for in terms of what everyone is probably going to feel. You got a new moon in Cancer. So, caring, nurturing, that's going to go up, or the desire to stay at home, and maybe it's so hot out that you just want to jack up the air conditioning and huddle under the covers. Well, there's a problem with that. There's a lot of squares happening, and specifically with the new moon in Cancer, there's you're going to see this, a perfect square with something. And that's going to affect the quality or the clearness or the clarity of this energy of new moon in Cancer. All right. We're going to go into detail on that. And if we go into the I-Ching, which, oh my gosh, I just see how I got these circles backwards, but you get the idea here. The blue circle here is actually supposed to be the green circle, so I got those reversed, but the Dreambot is showing you it's spilling out past the Tropical Astrology because it's correlated with the solution, dreams, imagining, but discovery and imagining, mainly discovery, is part of going to be what the solution is. That's why it's outside that circle. But the I-Ching should have been the blue, but it's the green circle. And that one says attention to detail. And that one's matched with this, that's not a very Cancer thing to do. It's not a new moon in Cancer sort of a thing, which we do need to look at all these alignments. And there are a lot of squares. And it's that pent up energy, that agitation, pressure, conflict. All the squares represent prevention. I can't, those kinds of archetypes. Then we having to pay attention to everything. And so that's the energy, according to the I-Ching, is attention to detail because you have to. And it's not the new moon in Cancer by itself. It's all the alignments around that. And then one of the squares is with Jupiter. So Jupiter is the planet of optimism. Well, with the square, that energy is halted or stopped or conflicted or pressured. So it's sort of the opposite, sort of pessimism. So I'll explain more of this in all the different contexts. We're going to, because I'm pressured on time, in addition to energy today, we're not going to go through the comments. I'm going to start with the Dreambot, and we're going to get started now. Oh, boy. All right. Sorry, did not have time to cover the comments, but I do appreciate your comments and likes and shares. Thank you. You're helping the algorithm, and we're growing because of it. Here is the Dreambot, the collection of dreams, people's dreams. We call this the collective unconscious, or the barometer of the collective unconscious. Of all things, the word dreams is up there at the very top. Not a significant search score, but it's at the top nonetheless, with lots of good support. And all these red arrows point to discovery, imagining. Even trip is indicated as a perfect overlap with the solution. So we got all those together, and I didn't even write down the meme topics, but this one is, as you saw on the summary slide, dreams, imagining, and discovery is the red, and the blue is timeline. You got birthday, older, today, young, remember, younger. So there's a lot of time concepts in here, and it's sort of really grouped in the middle of the run. I find that extremely interesting. And timeline, the main timeline, yeah, there's Saturn. Saturn also is squared, but also the North Node. And North Node and Uranus, these are two time capsules, mainly the future. And so I find that really interesting, how timeline is in the collective unconscious. And we're going to get into that too. All right, let's get to the astrology. Here's your overview. At the end of this CIRF week, we're in between these two black vertical lines. The planet of Neptune is going to be going retrograde. So you're going to have these far out planets representing the deep subconscious aspects of us, and Neptune being the imagining, dreams. There's another hit for, or another correlation to the collective unconscious is Neptune's going retrograde, which gives it a little bit more focus and attention on, particularly around the station time where it sort of stops and then starts in reverse. That's really where that focus is the strongest, but not so much for these outer planets, but in harmony with each other. That could make a difference in our timeline. There's the time again. And then on down, we have the sun obviously in Cancer. That's where our new moon is going to meet up with the sun in Cancer at, I think, 7 degrees, but we'll get to that later. And then the rest of these reds in this week are all squares. So there's a lot of conflicted energy. The sun square Jupiter is right here, and it goes exact on the 29th. Let's darken this thing so we can go day by day. There's a lot I want to point out here on this first day, and a lot of this will hold true because we're dealing with some slower planets on some of these, and so these alignments are going to be here for quite a while. Some we've already talked about. Thursday, the 23rd, the first one I want to highlight to you is the North Node and Uranus are coming into a conjunction. Now, they're both very futuristic. We've talked about this before. North Node is much more associated with Dharma, karma, the future of your life purpose, that kind of thing. Uranus is more of change, but can be futuristic and, sort of like technology, invention, and insight, and obviously change. But we're putting those together, changing the future, changing the course of the future. But unfortunately, it's all this slow, degrading, climaxing, strengthening square over to Saturn. Saturn, a planet of lack and limitation and challenge. So we're going to be challenged, or one way you could look at this archetype of this square is a lack of freedom, because Uranus is the freedom fighter, ruler of Aquarius. And interestingly, Saturn used to be the ruler of Aquarius in the ancient times, now more the ruler of Capricorn, but now in Uranus's land. And so Uranus is squared off to its own home, and that doesn't feel very good. So fighting in other lands and trying to change the course of the future, but in a very hard place, because Taurus doesn't like to change. And that's where it is. So it's the material world. The material world is the hardest place to change, some would argue. Other hard areas are the subconscious, but we're talking about Uranus in Taurus. And Taurus is representative of Earth and 3D reality and the world of facts, senses. and all that. Uranus is trying to shake up and change. But if you want to put that square into place, solidified in your mind of this feeling, that's how we sense astrology and these influences, with a feeling of lacking freedom, whatever that means, okay, in all its different contexts as we head into the future. But it's not a future of a lack of freedom, because this pressure forces both parties to work even harder. And so this Uranus is really working hard to change the course of the future towards freedom in the material world, and very bullheaded about it in Taurus. Okay, so that's that, and that is going to be strengthening. It's actually going to go exact. I have another slide here to show you when it goes exact. And that's July 31st, so it's only 5 weeks away. I want to point out to you that it's North Node and Uranus at 18 degrees, 41 minutes on the 31st of July this year. They're going exact. That's going to be the climax of this, or the perfection of Uranus conjunct North Node. And interestingly, Mars is right there with them, less than a degree away. And now Mars fighting with this freedom fighter group in bullheaded Taurus, but against the limitations and challenges. And it's going to really make for an interesting timeline, in my opinion, July 31st, when this thing goes exact. Obviously, as Uranus slowly goes past the North Node, it's still going to be in a conjunction. So that's going to be roughly another 5 to 8 weeks after that. So we're looking into September, maybe even October, before they get far enough apart to not consider a conjunction. But within 4 degrees now, right now as we speak, is significant. And so that's why I'm pointing that out. All right, next, you've got Sun in Cancer. We already knew that from last week. We have, and this, how was everybody's summer solstice, by the way? Ours was magical, with a just pure sun and beautiful blue sky, no chemtrails anywhere around here, no geoengineering. It comes and goes around here. It's not perfect. It's not always blue skies. Okay, so next what we want to talk about is the sun, which is going to be a factor in the new moon as the moon progresses to, or wanes to its new moon. They're going to see a square over to Jupiter. Jupiter is a planet of optimism, wisdom, and excessive amounts, but that's conflicted. So now you've got a sun that's weakened in Cancer, that wants to just cozy up and be under the blanket, is now squared off to optimism. And we did talk about this last time. This is going to go perfect this week. So that's why we're hammering this home again. It's going to be the major part of our pessimism, because if we don't have the optimism, it's hard to find it, then the opposite becomes true. And we're challenged with that energy of, I wanted to add one more thing, because this is really important, and I don't have this up yet. I have it to talk about in the next slides, but it's relevant to this pessimism discussion, is Mars in Aries home, and you've got Pluto in Cancer. They're squared off. And so what that means is we got an inner conflict, Pluto being the inner power, Mars being the outer power, the yang, or the behavioral power, the warrior, the outer fighter. Fight or flight is more of the Pluto, instincts, the power of your subconscious. How about control dramas in relationships? That's going to be Pluto. The desire to control others, and that's a subconscious construct. If you have a desire to control others, that's obviously narcissist, but we're all narcissists if we include just that. But this is the subconscious domain, so we don't even know we're doing it. We don't have the intention of controlling others. We just do it. And that's Pluto. And that's conflicted with Mars. So they're having a difference of opinion. So you got the outer versus the inner. And that produces a lot of discontent within self, all this pent up energy. And now what? Now what? It's not so simple just to crank up the air conditioner and lay under the covers. That doesn't solve this inner conflict. It's going to be bubbling up energy. It's going to be anxiety for a lot of people. It's going to be, fear of the future being right here. But all this energy is energy that doesn't flow freely. So you got to work harder for everything. And so some of you, particularly Earth signs and Capricorns, will be trying to work hard during this time period because of all this energy. It's invigorating energy, but not in a good way. And it'll feel uncomfortable for a lot of you. All right, let's continue on, and I'll help hopefully contextualize a lot of this for you. On Friday the 24th, now we've got the moon entering into this regime of future Uranus and North Node. So this becomes very emotional, highly emotional focus. And we've already talked about this power conflict. Right now, we're looking at 5 degrees until perfection. So just, it's not too strong, but definitely there, definitely a factor in your influence. On Saturday, the 25th, now the sun with its pessimistic square over to Jupiter is now only at 2.5 degrees. And this is going to be a big factor once that moon becomes new again. You're going to see this square going damn near perfect. And the inner conflict now is almost halfway to our extreme inner conflict, but not quite there. And then the hidden sextile is Venus. And we start with the moon here because they're conjunct, so very emotional, but rationally emotive, because it's Gemini. Moon in Gemini becomes much more rational. I mean, emotions by themselves seem to be sort of irrational, mainly because they're so secret to us and others in a variety of different ways. But now they don't become so mysterious. They become very more adaptable than usual. And they can add to relationships or take away. Get a little bit more emotional is not necessarily a positive thing for relationships. But Gemini, in general, is good for relationships. It's adaptable. It's agreeable. It's mutable. Gemini, a mutable sign, meaning that it can get along. And it is adaptable to change. Good, because Uranus is changing the future as we go along. But Venus, this is the sextile over to Jupiter. So now we got, it's not pessimism anymore for this. So Jupiter is obscured to the sun, and the optimism is obscured to the sun for the ego purposes, but for relationships as an opportunity to get that wisdom, to get that optimism, maybe even excessive and overdoing it, but it's a very opportunistic alignment there for you. And then on Monday, the 27th of June, we're looking at 1 to 2 degrees. So really tight is Venus and Jupiter. So even with this pent-up energy that we've been discussing, be looking for opportunities for providing wisdom to the relationship and vice versa, and relationship to be adding into your wisdom bucket and toolkit and self-improvement and philosophy. Now we're within 1 degree of Sun square Jupiter. So even more pessimism, even with that sextile opportunity getting tightened as well. Now on Tuesday the 28th, we have a new moon in Cancer, 7 degrees, 23 minutes. And now look at this. This is Jupiter at 7 degrees 19 minutes. So we're only looking at 4 minutes off of perfection with this square. That's incredible. And so that timestamp, the energetic stamp, is good for this whole lunar cycle, this Cancer cycle. So where we wanted to be more nurturing, moon being home and sun being in detriment, ego being in detriment, it is a Cancer cycle, but it's stamped with hard to feel optimistic. That's one of the big. That is a big stamp because just 4 minutes off of perfection. Incredible. You also have a tightening Mars and Pluto. So this inner conflict is happening and getting stronger. We're only looking at, let's see here, about 2 degrees. So that's pretty strong too. So the pent-up energy from before, maybe the feeling of hopelessness, pessimism, I can't do anything, everything's hard. Why does everything have to be so hard? And we also have limitation is squared off with Uranus. We still have that one. Why is there such a lack of everything? Everyone's bitching and moaning and complaining. This goes on hyperdrive because of all these squares, but also just because everything's in Cancer. Not everything. The sun and the moon are both conjoined in Cancer. Can be pessimistic at times, not nearly as much as Pisces, but can be, both water signs. So the question is, can you just lie in bed and sleep through this agitated energy? Well, maybe you can if you douse yourself enough with relaxants or some extreme anxiety management skills, maybe some breathing, meditation might do it. But we're going to be looking at what the best way is to handle this pent-up energy in the solution phase of this report. Last day of our CIRF week is Wednesday the 29th. And we have a perfected Venus sextile Jupiter. So this is the climax of opportunity, which is sort of a pun because we've got Venus as, the goddess of love and romance and sex. But this is the height of wisdom, excess. So we might really overdo it here, but doesn't have to be a good thing. It could be too much, which is what Jupiter archetype also is too much because we're feeling overly grandiose about it. But relationships, that's a good area this week, a good area, good opportunities. Everything else is pretty much squared off, hard to feel good about. And one of those areas is this inner conflict. We're within 1 degree now of square, perfect square with Mars and Pluto. So the inner conflict is almost getting to its climax at the same time. So you're inner conflicted, which obviously bubbles out into projection into the world. But relationships have that opportunity for positivity, optimism, and excess. All right. Everything we talked about pretty much is all week, other than that new moon in Cancer, which is only obviously 1 day. Maybe plus or minus 24 hours, but especially that whole lunar cycle. All right. So for the I-Ching reading, we're looking at hexagram 62, attention to detail. And the way that I have analyzed this, it's clear that there's a lot of tension in the air from the squares, the alignments. And that conflict and tension and pressure causes us to really pay attention to things and ask a lot of questions. So there's a lot of mental energy happening right now. The mind is hardwired to look for threats. So there's a lot more anxiety here this week. Ambitious undertakings are not in order. Modesty stemming from the recognition of limitations is a fine quality. Wise person recognizes and accepts the nature of the time. Now, I forgot to really analyze this line 6, but Keep in mind, at a time when details are particularly important, returning to the comfortable ground of broad visions brings misfortune. Look at the overlaps that we have. Comfortable ground implies Cancer. Cancer is a comfort creature. It wants to be comfortable, very comfortable. It feels vulnerable, soft. And then the broad visions is where the collective unconscious was. But if you return to the comfortable ground of broad visions brings misfortune this week. Isn't that interesting? So it's saying, watch out for your comfort zone. If you attempt overly ambitious undertakings when only small opportunities are available to you, bad luck will result. And then taking things one step at a time and pay attention to the details is not the solution per se, but it does overlap with it. Let's go there now. The solution, hexagram 56. The wanderer. Interesting. Venturing far from home. They must develop a more yielding personality so that their local contact or host can open doors and pave the way. Inwardly, the wanderer knows that it is sometimes difficult to discern the intentions of strangers. Are they hostile? Are they friendly? Merely opportunistic? The twin houses of mystery and discovery rule any journey we take. This is what I was talking about in the collective unconscious, or the Dreambot. Discovery is right there. It's implicated in dreams and trip, in those specific words. Imagining. Travel is a great teacher and a great equalizer. So there's even some words in this I-Ching reading that imply specifically to travel. And I find that interesting. We're going to go into this triangulation with an open mind here. There is an art to living on the road. Increased caution and discernment become the keys not only to success, but to survival. Then once you get to your new environment, be sincere, flexible, and demanding rather than stubborn. Get rid of attitudes and habits that could encumber you or make you too conspicuous. In other words, you don't want to differentiate too much once you get to these different environments, different cultures. It's not a favorable time to enter into a binding agreement or to start new enterprises. And that is a solution recommendation from the I-Ching. So we put our new moon into the calculator and we get hexagram 52 in the rave, and we get Gemini, which is good because Gemini is also like a travel. So this is not far from home. Gemini and Mercury are more of just close by commutes, but travel is implied in a Gemini setting. So that's interesting. We'll get there soon. But first, what does the rave say? Keeping still. Is this the kind of keeping still that says is more of a Cancer, stay in your house? No, this is the keeping still on your face. It's the same thing as last week, being holding your composure. That's the kind of stillness we're looking at. Self-discipline, perfected self-discipline and restraint that deals easily and wisely with impulsive temptations. The energy for restraint that recognizes the value of stillness and focus. All right, so it's non-reactivity, just like last week, but in a different hexagram. You ready for the solution? Triangulation, here it is. And let me get to the proper setting here so that you can see it all. There it is. There's pessimism. I'm guessing most people will feel pessimistic this week, as a new moon in Cancer brings out much caring and nurturing, except that vulnerable ego has a hard time seeing optimism. Coupled with a plethora of squares, ego is frantically looking around for threats and problems from which to run and hide. All right, so now here's your triangulation solution. Now we had the I-Ching 56. That's the wanderer. Travel might be indicated, but at a minimum, try to fit in as best you can. So it is about discovery and newness and seeing new things, meeting new people, but don't be too conspicuous. That was according to the I-Ching. Pay attention to their laws and customs, or local customs and traditions. The rave says, Use restraint. Don't be too reactive. Focus on stillness as your top value. So those two things are sort of hard together, but they're essential. Is don't wig out. Don't get too, too different. Try to fit in as best you can. And then Gemini. Oh, thank goodness we've got Gemini to help us be adaptable and be versatile and be alert. You don't want to be living in fear, but you do want to be alert for weird things that stand out, threats. Your mind's going to do that anyway. But Gemini will help you do it in a healthy way. Communicative, intelligent, rational, can be witty, and agile. All right, so here we go. No hiding this week under your cozy blanket, Cancers. This week challenges you to see new environments. Get out. This is with this pent-up energy. And instead of hanging out in the house and get more pent up through astrological influences and mental squares, get out of your houses and explore. But pay attention to customs and local traditions. Be adaptable and flexible wherever you go. Keep in mind, too, that other people are probably complaining more, uptick in pessimism, seeing lack, seeing what's wrong. Just be aware of that. It doesn't mean you have to do that, too. You're more concerned about fitting in with customs, traditions, that kind of thing, wherever you end up. Even the rave suggests strict discipline towards the same composure we were advised last week. Remain still and focused. Restrain yourself and then communicate openly and adaptably to any environment and any personality you meet. That's a very Gemini trait. When enacting the sidereal Gemini behaviors, watch out for and prevent yourself from lecturing, being cunning, and remember your anxiety management coping skills. Be alert, be aware, be versatile. Break free from pessimism. It's an illusion and a matter of perception. Getting out of your comfort zone could be the perfect antidote to the new moon squared Jupiter, especially with all the pent-up energies of the squares du jour this week. I am comfortable and joyful when I am out of my comfort zone. For some of you, that's very hard. For some of you, it becomes very easy. Okay? I am comfortable and joyful when I'm out of my comfort zone. So doing that with disorder, with lack, with pessimism all around you, that is a skill. And a skill can be learned no matter who you are, no matter what astrology and natal chart that you might have. You can do this. You can stay calm. This is our second week in a row that we've been directed to do this, to be non-reactive. But the emphasis here is get out of your comfort zone. That's for the new moon square Jupiter. And fit in as best you can. Don't be conspicuous when you go out there and explore. You can go far or you can go close. I think you can also do this within your house. You can imagine new places. You could probably put on a movie or something and be embedded in that other environment for, a little bit, for a while. I think you're able to do that. But I think it is best if you actually get out and about, see new things. That's also in the collective and the Dreambot. Get out and see new things, experience new things, and try to fit in, try to respect the culture that you found yourself in. All right, that's it, everybody. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate your support. Sorry we didn't do any comments today. It doesn't mean I don't care. I am going to read those. And we'll get back to some more CIRF next week. We have a July 4th. We're going to be talking about next week. Still some squares. Just a heads up on the following CIRF. So we got the July 4th, obviously a lot of fireworks. We're going to be looking at a lot of T-squares, not on July 4th technically, but around that whole period. I think there's 2 or 3 that just permeate the whole week. So this feeling of entrapment and just like pessimism on steroids, I think. But we'll get to that. We'll get more details. Don't get too pessimistic. I'm already putting you into a pessimistic mode for the following CIRF report, and I'm not intending on doing that. All right, get out, explore, get out of your comfort zones, fit in as best you can, and do the best you can with this pent-up, aggressive, even pressure conflict that we see ourselves in, and a lack of optimism potentially. All right, and we'll catch up with you next week. Thanks, everybody. Bye.